Hello, I'm Blaze and welcome back to Warframe. I realize that I may be accused of pandering due to its status as something of a community favourite, but I actually quite like this thing irrespective of that, so let's face it, I was going to cover this thing sooner or later anyway. So let's all get a feel for the Grakata. Before I go any further, I would like to give a very special and fond thank you to an individual with the in-game name of lostguru. Shortly after making my last video, they actually contacted me in-game and just offered to give me rhyme rounds, and I was completely blown away. I was not expecting such generosity, and I guarantee that I will be putting it to good use. So thank you very much, lostguru. You are bat-shit insane, and I dearly hope I can make you feel like your contribution was worth it. Okay, so gushing aside. The Grakata has a mastery rank requirement of 0, and you can pick up its blueprint from the market for 15,000 credits, or occasionally have it granted to you for free as a randomized login reward, with the build requirements afterwards being 25,000 credits, 100 polymer bundles, 900 salvage, 400 alloy plates, and 2 neurodes. The neurodes will take some farming for newer players, but otherwise the build costs are relatively cheap, especially considering what this thing can be made to do with the right mods. Alternatively, if you'd rather get Clem right now, you can pick this up pre-built along with a pre-installed catalyst and its own weapon slot for 125 platinum. Diving right into the numbers side of things, the Grakata has a base damage of only 11, with a relatively even spread consisting of 4.4 impact damage, 3.7 puncture damage, and 2.9 slash damage. This sounds extremely low, but makes sense when you move over to the supplemental stats, which paints a very different picture. The status chance is 20% and the critical chance is 25%, both of which are very high for automatic weapons, and while the critical damage multiplier sits at the average of 2 times, it still works very well with crit-focused mods. Not only that, but it possesses a fire rate of 20 rounds per second, which is frankly ludicrous and is one of the highest default fire rates in-game for anything. It's basically a 10-0 sized MG42. As for ammunition, it has a magazine capacity of 60 rounds and a reload time that sits slightly on the longer side of things at 2.4 seconds. And interestingly, the Grakata's reserve ammo pool is set to higher than average, letting you carry around 750 rounds before using any ammo mods. The early acquisition and its low base damage might suggest to some that this isn't really worth using for anything other than mastery fodder, but those of you familiar with the Soma will know how a weapon that starts off weak can grow into a major powerhouse thanks to its other stats. So, high crit chance, high status chance, plenty of ammo, and an incredible rate of fire sets this thing up to be a hell of a spectacle. It is also actually surprisingly accurate, but the problem with long-range accuracy will be the fire rate. Having recoil applied 20 times per second is really going to hamper your ability to hit things far away without either a recoil reduction mod or some very tight trigger discipline. You have a lot of choice when it comes to modding the Grakata because it can actually do quite a lot, though the two main recommended routes are either a crit-focused build, basically turning this thing into a cut-down Soma, or a stat-focused build where it actually rather comes into its own. For newer players, the crit-focused approach will likely be much easier, as those dual stat mods can take some time to get. Just throw on Point Strike and Vital Sense and you're pretty much good to go. Once you do get the dual stat mods though, with a combination of Malignant Force, Rhyme rounds and Thermite rounds, you can bump the status chance of this thing up to a maximum of 79%. And if you happen to also have access to the High Voltage mod, that goes up to 88.5%. Though at the cost of removing one of the 2 crit mods. Hold the trigger down for a moment and anything that didn't just drop dead will likely have had every status proc your Grakata is capable of inflicted upon them. It actually makes it quite useful for solo void runs, assuming you bring some ammo restores, as you will likely be hitting the corrosive status effect very rapidly, which will strip your target's armor away. Also, while ordinarily I'd throw Shred on almost anything, for one, between my crit mods and my status mods, I can't really fit it in anywhere. And for second, the thing's fire rate is already 20 rounds per second. If I bump that up anymore, I'm going to be burning way more ammo on misses or already dead targets than the added punch through is worth in my opinion. This thing can be considered something of a community favourite depending on whom you ask, and at least some of its reputation can be credited to the work of a Tumblr user by the name Data Reaper, creating the character of Clem the almost 10-0 based on their encounter with a Grineer elite lancer while they were waiting at extraction, and putting their artistic mindset to work on creating a somewhat simple-minded but lovable character with something of an obsession with the Grakata and spawning the phrase, "To Grakata." Aside from its mimetic status though, it is actually quite fun to use. When modded for status chance, your screen is filled with a torrent of every status proc ever, which I find to be quite delightful. The recoil can be a bit hard to manage, but the extremely rapid rate of fire also lets you drop most targets at a rapid pace, especially if you go for headshots. And the new sounds for this thing help things along quite nicely. Seriously, it sounds like a goddamn jackhammer. It's amazing!
The Tenno are lost, and they will resist, but I, for will cleanse this place.
The low damage does leave the Grakata somewhat outclassed at the end game level, but it's a real joy to use, which is quite surprising considering how early you can get one. It leaves me lamenting not picking it up much earlier actually. There were a lot of options available to me when I was starting out, but I just kinda ignored them all in favour of stuff that seemed shiny, and due to the fact that I had been rather taken in by the idea of the Soma being top tier. Whatever the hell that's even supposed to mean right now. But at the same time, getting it later on when I have the mods necessary to make it work might have been for the best after all. Plus, one final point in its favour for being rather unique is that it's currently the only example of a submachine gun in Warframe. We have plenty of rifles of all kinds, but just this one SMG for some reason. And to its credit, it stands up quite well. So if you'd like to try out something that champions the idea of more Daka, and a torrential downpour of status procs in your enemy sounds like fun, I can heartily recommend this fun little thing to you. It might not make it all that far into an endless T4 mission, but other than that, it's actually very solid. Just, make sure you bring plenty of ammo. Thank you for watching my look at the Grakata, and once more, special thanks to lostguru for helping to make this video possible. All comments are appreciated, and I hope to see you around next time. For more content, feel free to give a click over to my look at the Recta Ballistica or the Tigris down below. Good luck, have fun, and take care.